We're back, baby. It's the Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. Some somber news, I guess, gentlemen, but not news we're surprised about. Maalik Murphy, our QB2, will be transferring from our program. He will not be with us for the college football playoffs, unfortunately, in the Sugar Bowl. And if we make it further in Houston, he won't be there either. Before we get to the schedule release, which is very exciting for next season in our first year with the SEC, we do have to discuss this. I'll come out and say, look, we want the best for Maalik. It's going to be unfortunate that he won't be. He filled in as best as he could, and he got us 2 wins at the end of the day, and he's a big reason why we're here. It's unfortunate that he won't be with us, and he won't be able to suit up if we need him. Like, you never know. Knock on wood. We hope Quinn's fully healthy and plays, both those games if we make it to the best of his ability. But knowing Quinn's injury history, it's not out of the question. A backup quarterback is paramount, as we've seen, for Florida State and for other programs. You got to have a good QB2. While I trust Arch, and Arch is exciting, Maalik does have more time under center for us this season, and he's more acclimated and he's more of a veteran piece. So it definitely sucks in that capacity. But yeah, we shouldn't be surprised. We knew this was coming.
We knew it was coming for sure. Honestly, incredible. He stuck with it and got some playing time. And those 2 games that he had under his belt definitely helped his resume a little bit in the recruiting battle. So I think that's a nice thing that he can take with him and show to other schools, is that he's got some legitimate game tape in a Power 5 conference for a potential national championship team in a season. So obviously it sucks that we don't have him on our roster because, Quinn goes down and we know he's definitely susceptible to injury. We do have to roll with Arch, and not that we're not confident in Arch, but you definitely want the guy with more game experience when it comes down to a college football playoff. I will say, Maalik has already come out and said that he's a Longhorn forever, which is awesome. And there's no bad blood whatsoever. I don't think anyone there's any animosity or anything like that. I think Jonathan Brooks, JB, even put out a sad face tweet when he heard the news.
Oh yeah.
So it definitely sucks, but in this recruiting process right now and transfer portal, you have to jump on these opportunities as quickly as possible. He doesn't have time to wait around an extra 3 weeks because some of the big programs might get their guy already. It's kind of like MLB free agency, where it's you want to get the best deal possible and you don't want to wait too long. So he's got to get on this quickly.
Yeah.
So and the teams that are rumored, LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma State, UCLA. Rice is in the mix for some reason, but hopefully we don't have to see him, against us. I mean, obviously we want to root for him, but we never want to root against him.
I think UCLA, before you go, Tuss, I think UCLA is a good fit. He's from the area. Go back home. I don't hate that fit at all. T.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm really proud of Longhorn Nation, just seeing the responses and the praise that Longhorn fans and teammates obviously shouted out to Maalik when he announced the news was cool to see. A lot of times guys who are not the starting QB, when they go somewhere else, or even guys that are the starting QB. I mean, you look at a situation like Ohio State and the conversations and chatter from Buckeyes fans and college football fans the entire season, even though Kyle McCord only lost 1 game, was that this guy was not it. Right.
Yeah.
And now he's going somewhere else, and he probably has a little bit of a sour taste in his mouth. And probably a good reason as to why he didn't want to stay and try and compete for the job next year, no matter who they were bringing in, because I feel like that would have been the scenario. And if Quinn, I actually think Maalik probably would have been in a similar situation, although far more pressure with a guy named Arch Manning, chomping at the bit right behind you.
Crazy.
And in the limited amount of play that we did get to see from Arch, it was really enticing. He looked really sound. He throws the ball well. He's very mobile. He looks to be a good decision maker. And Maalik, but so many Longhorn fans, and I feel like we deserve some good credit there. And I'm proud to be a Longhorn alongside them in how they were talking about how essential he was in getting us to this college football semifinal game, winning those 2 games, close games. He was indispensable in our route to a potential national championship, and he deserves all that credit. And so it was just cool to see that. And it's cool to see that he wants to be a part of that Longhorn Nation, that Longhorn family for the rest of, his days. And that it's just a better feeling when a guy leaves like that, as opposed to something went wrong, right? And Sark and he had a massive disagreement. They don't like each other. The players
Yeah.
the players don't respond well to our coaching staff. It's not that, right? It doesn't. He just wants the opportunity that he deserves as a highly touted high school prospect who ended up at the University of Texas, who was very patient and might have gotten the opportunity, but knows that he's guaranteed an opportunity elsewhere. It makes total sense, and wish him the best.
From an Arch perspective, like Arch came into this program going, okay, Quinn's going to start this year, and if things go right, he's going to go to the NFL draft, and I'm going to come in there next year. Yeah. I still am a believer that Quinn can still go to the NFL draft, despite saying he wants to come back. So let's say Quinn goes. They are not passing up Arch Manning. Arch Manning will transfer, and they can't risk that. Just off the field, let alone forget on the field. Off the field, you just can't risk that guy leaving right now. And there's still rumors that the Ohio State Buckeyes are going after him. Maalik Murphy, again, I agree with you, Todd. It's great to be a Longhorn. Great to see everyone, have that response to him and be proud of him and wish him the best. And I think we're seeing that more and more with this transfer portal era. That's the best case for transfers these days. Guys are not leaving on bad terms. They're just leaving because they're not getting the playing time they want or they think they deserve, and they want to go benefit their future elsewhere. And that's been the better part of the player empowerment era. Those sour tastes that leaving for the wrong reasons or crazy reasons, those are diminishing. And it's guys being like, hey, look, like this just wasn't a right fit for me. I think McCord is different. Kyle McCord, he loses one game at Ohio State, but everyone's like, they just know he's not the guy. I think that's probably the most bad blood we're going to see this offseason. But the Maalik thing is like, hey, look, man, I know I'm not your guy. Like Quinn comes back, I'm not your guy. Arch comes, he leaves, I'm still not your guy.
Same thing with Casey Thompson. Same thing with Hudson Card. I mean, I don't think there's any love lost there. I mean, everyone respects the hell out of what they did and how they represented Burnt Orange. And I think those guys, went off and got opportunities where they were the guy. And I don't blame those guys. Your years are limited as a football player. For most guys, they don't go pro, but you want to squeeze every single piece of juice out as you can and have an opportunity to potentially go pro. So I don't blame them whatsoever. But to your point on Quinn, before we get into the schedule, if he balls out, he most certainly, I think, should go to the draft, just with the injury history that he's had. I know he's an early season pick to be a Heisman favorite next year, but you don't want to have that drive you. You've had 2 pretty serious injuries in your college career thus far. And if you go out and take care of business against Washington and take care of business against either Bama or Michigan, you're going up against pros. And if you're playing in both those games, if you at least get to the championship, that means you had a pretty good game in the game before. There's enough tape there for you to get taken in the second round, maybe first round. Yeah.
You would have been the guy you'd have been the guy to go and beat Bama in Bama, one of 2 teams to do it in God knows how long. You would have dominated and been record setting, and outside of that one interception, been pretty flawless in the Big 12 championship, in the final Big 12 championship for the Texas Longhorns, which they won. You would have, like you're saying, been great in the first game because you're gonna have to be great. Quinn Ewers has to be great for us to beat the Washington Huskies. They are going to put up points. They are not a run attack team. They are an offensive juggernaut from the passing game. They are going to put up points. We love our defensive backs. It's not our strongest suit. Just David Spade. Like that's the the black and white of it. Quinn's gonna have to put up points. The Michigan offense is still strong, or Alabama offense. If we see one of those 2 teams in the next round, they're gonna have to put up points there. He's gonna have to ball out for us to win. If he balls out, and if you're gonna be a first round pick, especially at the quarterback spot, we've seen how guys wait and it never works out for them. Didn't work. Even Liner was gonna be the first overall pick. Didn't work out for him. Matt Barkley, a USC guy. Locker, who was still a top 10 pick, dropped. Like Sam Howell went from being, all right, this is going to be the first quarterback taken to a 5th round pick. Quarterbacks fluctuate the most, I would say. So if you're Quinn Ewers and you could be
look up who the favorite of the NFL MVP is right now.
Yeah. And he was Purdy. And but after his rookie year in college and sophomore year, he was supposed to be a 1st round pick.
Right.
Ended up being a 7th round pick.
Mr. Relevant.
Yeah. Even Tua. It was tank for Tua. Like, not like,
overall.
Anyway, yeah, and he Burrow went ahead of him.
Was it
anything could happen? 5th overall, yeah, because Herbert was 6. Caleb Williams, the immaculate quarterback, still might not be the first guy taken. So anything could happen with the quarterbacks. People fall in and out of love with them. If you're Quinn Ewers and you're gonna be the 4th quarterback taken in this class, which is the highest he can go, I think, because I don't think he'll jump Jaden Daniels, and obviously Drake May and Caleb Williams. There's a chance he gets taken by a pretty good organization. What if you're picked? What if the Broncos are like, we like you. We want you to be the backup for Russ and learn under Russ.
100%. I mean, look,
Pittsburgh, Minnesota.
We always say like you're a product of your environment, and sometimes it can screw up your development when you go to an organization that is desperate for a quarterback. I mean, look at how it worked out for Aaron Rodgers, right? Green Bay wasn't in a terrible position. They picked
Jordan Love
the draft and Jordan Love, right? Like you go in a position where you're already on a roster that's pretty well built out. You got good receivers, got a good line, got a good head coach, you got a good record to go with it. For Quinn Ewers, like that's the best thing possible for you. You don't want to go to a team like the Carolina Panthers or the Bears right now, or I mean, I think those teams still have a lot to do. They have a lot of adjustments to make. The Raiders, yeah, like train wrecks. So at the end of the day, best case scenario for Longhorn Nation. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, would I rather have Quinn next year? Would I rather have Arch? What you rather have as a Longhorn is for Quinn to ball out these next 2 games where he has no choice but to go to the draft, because he's did everything he can to get us to a place where we're winning a ring. And that's that. And then Arch plays. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's the best possible path.
Yeah. I mean, you win a national championship. We kept talking about it this year is the last thing I'll say on it. Caleb Williams came back, but he had already won a Heisman. So the only thing he had left to do on the checklist was win a national championship, and what he looked like when he felt that his team couldn't get there. Right. And how he kind of started to not disassociate, but not have that same focus in that level of want, because he was already ready to be a pro quarterback. And if Quinn wins a national championship, I don't care about the Heisman. You did what you were supposed to do. That's what you go to college for, to win a national championship.
Who's the best quarterback in the history of our program?
Vince Young.
Who do many people regard as the best quarterback of the 21st century in college?
Colt.
Cool. Vince Young was the double answer. Sorry. But yeah, Colt, sure. Neither of those guys have Heisman. Neither of them have Heismans.
Nope.
Right.
Vince Young doesn't have a Heisman. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a Heisman. Andrew Luck doesn't have a Heisman trophy. Like, these guys don't have Heisman trophies. Like, but still, like, they went and they balled and they got the job done. Not Andrew Luck didn't win at all, but Trevor Lawrence won a national title. Vince Young won a national title. Like, that's it. It trumps a Heisman trophy.
Just go win a national title. Speaking of national titles,
yeah.
Next year's schedule is very important in regards to how we can get to the national title. Oh, what happened to us? Our heads.
I got to figure it.
There we are. But the schedule is obviously such an important part, not only the strength of schedule, but also just how it lines up. And it was announced last night. All the SEC teams now know their schedule, and we are currently looking at the Longhorns schedule for next year.
Read it for us, bro.
I sound like you're a Scottish there. Looking at the Longhorn schedule.
Looking at the Longhorn schedule.
Lassie.
Yeah, so it's I'm gonna have to get close here. I feel like an old man, but just so I can see the dates because they're quite small. We open the season against the Colorado State Rams. That's August 31st. And then the next week, week 2, we play the Michigan Wolverines in Ann Arbor.
Could be a rematch of the final.
Absolutely right. If they beat Alabama and we beat Washington, that's who we're facing in the college football final. Week 3, we will play University of Texas San Antonio, the Roadrunners, on September 14th. Yep. That game's at home. Then we play University of Louisiana Monroe at home the following week. Then we get into conference play. We open on September 28th with Mississippi State. That one's also a home game. Yeah, it certainly is. And then we go to Dallas to play the Red River rivalry. Then we go back home. So a lot of home games early here against the Georgia Bulldogs. Then we take it on the road to Vanderbilt at the end of October. We open up November against Florida at home. Then bringing back the rivalry, which I think at some point has to have an official name with Arkansas. We play them November 16th. And then the week before Thanksgiving, we play Kentucky at home, and we finish the season at Kyle Field in College Station playing against Texas A&M, which will now, consistently be at the end of our schedule for that Thanksgiving game as it was prior to A&M joining the SEC.
All right, go. What's your gut check, Nick?
Yeah, some takeaways. I think that rivalry name for Arkansas should be called the Pig Roast.
With it.
How about that? Pig roast? All right, cool.
Yep.
Sold. Got a bye week before the Red River rivalry. So that'll be nice to, get our heads right and focus in and lock in. Because, I mean, we always know that game can present a lot of different challenges. And Like, we're sitting here this season with one loss on our record, and that's the one loss. And honestly, I feel like we think we're a lot better than what that game showed. So having a bye week in front of there gives us plenty of time to prepare and get our mental focus in there. And then honestly, to go right off that game and go straight after Georgia, right after that, we could be riding a huge wave. Because it's not that hard of a schedule besides those two games, in my opinion. I mean, obviously Michigan preseason, but you can foreseeably drop that Michigan game and run the table and still be fine and go to the playoff. I mean, at the end of the day,
Sure.
you win your conference, or in. That's how it is now with this new process. So foreseeably, like, that Michigan game really only matters for bragging rights and, you know, AP polls and stuff like that. But your conference is what really matters. If you're winning the SEC, you know, you're for sure getting into the playoff. So I like those two games being back to back, you know, for riding a high here. We take care of business. I mean, Vanderbilt's a layup. Florida's in shambles. The pig roast, I mean, they weren't that good this season. Kentucky's got some big transfers coming in this year. I feel like they've been doing really well in the transfer portal. So they're a team to watch out for. And then little brother, Texas A&M. We'll see how that game goes. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of emotions from them as well. So I'm not going to consider that one a layup. And it's at Kyle Field. So, you know they're going to be practicing their midnight yells for weeks, maybe months. But I'm excited. This is really fun.
Yeah, I'll say three of the first 4 games are quote unquote knock on wood layups, and they're all at home. So if we have Quinn, great. If we don't have Quinn, that's Arch Manning's first 4 games as a starter. Love to see that at home. 3 games at home. They're all pretty gimme games. At Michigan's going to be tough. You know, we'll see what happens with JJ McCarthy, right? And then, we have people in the comments. One guy's saying, I just noticed, OU will have an entirely new offensive line next season and quarterback. Well, I'll get into OU in a second. At Michigan, they're going to have a lot of changeover, right? They could have a new quarterback. They could have both their running backs go to the draft. They could have receivers gone, you know, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. And yes, they are a plug and play program, and they have great recruits coming in, but you don't even know what's going to be the deal with Harbaugh. He could be gone too. So if we're going to get Michigan, I'm glad we're getting Michigan. Even if we do see them obviously in the college football playoff, knock on wood, I hope we do. I'm glad we're getting them next year versus early on this year. I think, you know, we saw that Bama team. We saw how that can be. This Bama team in the college football playoffs a lot different than the Bama team we saw. I'm not saying that we would have lost to this team. I'm just simply saying, like, they had a lot of change go on in Alabama, and it took them a little bit of time to get their sea legs. Michigan could be in a similar position next year with all the turnover they have going on. Mississippi State at home, great. Should be a win. But look, Jeff Lebby was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and he took the job as the head coach at Mississippi State. It's not a gimme game. Somewhat of like they're going to give us a tough time. He beat us this year on offense. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Oklahoma is going to have a lot of change, obviously, with Dylan Gabriel going, but Venables is a heck of a coach. They're going to be a heck of a team, and they're going to come. If they were so improved from Venables' first year to his second year, you have to anticipate they're going to be just as improved from his second year to his third year. Like, we have to give him the same level of credit as we gave Sark. Georgia, tough, as they could be the number 1 team next year. At Vandy, layup lines. Florida's in shambles. I'm with you there. At Arkansas, the pig roast. Like, look, they're going to have a lot of turnover. KJ Jefferson's gone. Raheem Sanders is gone. That we went there last time and lost. It's not a gimme game. It's a rivalry game. We could be in a position, you know, let's say best case scenario, we're running the table. We're undefeated. We're the number 1 team in the nation. They're playing to ruin our season. Arkansas at home. Kentucky, I'm glad you gave them credit. Not an easy game. And then at A&M, the emotions are high, man. I think we have it's a nice schedule in the sense that and I'll let you go to your reactions, that we don't play Auburn, we don't play Alabama or LSU, obviously, and we don't see Ole Miss. I'm glad, or Tennessee.
Yeah.
We missed those 5 teams. That's kind of great. We got lucky.
And not to mention, we're not playing Mizzou either, who's a former Big 12 team, which you could have understood if they had put them on our schedule. And obviously they ended the season ranked the number 9 team in the country. So
that I would be remiss. Thank you for including them. I do want to say, while it's a nicer schedule and an easier SEC schedule, there are a few trap games in there, and it's not a complete cakewalk.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think it's worth mentioning that, and this is probably no new news to anyone, our schedule will never be easy, ever.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot harder than it is this year.
But it is in consideration of the teams that we could be playing, like you mentioned, Josh.
Yeah.
We're getting away with, getting some of the worst teams in the SEC. In particular, if you get Vanderbilt, you're only playing 8 SEC games. You get Vanderbilt, like you're happy about that one, right? And a good timing to get, a new head coach at Mississippi State, right? Florida and A&M, I will say, while those programs are not in a good spot right now, they have a lot of talent on both of their rosters. And if we aren't playing clean football next season, which obviously we won't know until we get there, and I would hope that later in the season, 4th year in Sark's tenure, like we will be, because we've built that winning culture this year. Those games could get chippy. And look, I know like Florida's at home, but it's they're always a tough team. And Billy Napier, like it can only get better. I would expect. We'll see though. But I love the opening point about Colorado State, UTSA, ULM. Those are huge games. I like where we're catching Michigan. But of course, you look at the schedule, and if Georgia's doing their thing, if Oklahoma's doing their thing, Michigan's doing their thing, I mean, we could feasibly, if we run the table, or even if we lose 1 or 2 of those games, have played 3 of the top 10 teams in the country. Like, I don't expect Georgia to be lower than number 8 at any point next season. They're going to bring back Beck. We know what they do on the defensive side. They'll lose Bowers. They'll lose McConkey, but they'll have guys that step up. Their running backs are young. They're always a good football team. And obviously Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in college football. And if Harbaugh's there, he's one of the best coaches in college football as well. So from a strength of schedule at the top, as far as the best teams that we play, they're some of the best in college football. And I think those wins can really mean a lot. But this is fun, man. That A&M game at Kyle Field, that's what the season's all about, really there. I mean, I know we want to get the Sooners back in the Red River rivalry game, but to bring that rivalry back will be a ton of fun. And I know every Aggie is already licking their chops because they want to spoil our season. I hope we travel well. Last time I was at that last game in 2012 when we played in Kyle Field, and we beat them on that Justin Tucker field goal to win the game with Case McCoy at the helm. So I'll probably be back there again with a bunch of my family who are Aggies. And, the best part about that, I remember leaving that game. I think we were juniors in high school, and I was like, they don't have a band. Like they do have a band, right? But they're a marching band. They don't play music, contemporary music, while the game is going on. And I was sitting in the away section next to the Longhorn band, and they were popping off. And then the Longhorns win. They play All I Do Is Win. And I was like, this is a vibe. These guys I want to be a part of.
The A&M guys are suckers and losers. Sorry.
I will say, I think we're going to have 4 ranked games this year.
Go.
It's Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, Kentucky, and there could potentially be a 5th at A&M. We'll see. And they're going to look to spoil the season. You mentioned the pig roast that, for the number 1 team in the nation, and we're going to Arkansas. If we're the number 1 team in the nation, if we're any team in the nation, right, for our hopes of winning the SEC or going to the conference championship, the biggest roadblock is A&M. That would make their entire lives to beat us on the first game back at Kyle Field to kick us out of whatever championship game we're looking to get into. So be careful of that. Yeah. Honestly, I'm excited for these tailgates because at the pig roast, I mean, we got some good eating. You could roast a pig. We have a gator roast. We do a gator roast. We can do
that would be good.
We can do a bulldog roast.
It tastes like chicken. It's pretty good.
All right, well, easy there. Yeah, some guy threw out in our comments. Shout out to DJ Dog 31. GA fans, good luck finding hotel rooms on October 19th. ACL, Formula One, same weekend in Austin. Coincidence? I think not. If there is one thing,
I would boys that live in Austin.
If there's one thing I would say, yeah, right. If there's one thing I would say is like, I'm not worried about them. They gotta have no fans. Like that team's gonna come to play. They have pros on their team. Yeah. And if Beck is back, which he should be, like he's a guy that can go first overall. He played that well in the second half of the season to warrant that level of consideration next year. Yep. He's growing that much as a passer. So it's a really great point, but that team could easily. Like they don't need to travel that well, and they will. They'll figure it out.
No, knowing that it's ACL, the Grand Prix, and us playing Georgia, which feasibly could be College game day, right? Like you wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Totally.
That might be the best Saturday throughout the entire football season, like just from an experience standpoint. So
being in that city, it's buzzing. Ubers.
Yeah, we're going to have to get down to Austin. The other thing I'll say is from a part of the reason for Texas fans, what's so exciting about going to the SEC, obviously the quality of play across the board is so much better. But traveling to some of these incredible venues and cities in the Southeast, and I feel like this year we kind of get shortchanged on that, right? Because we just played Arkansas. We know what College Station and Aggie Land is like. And then, okay, fun. We get to go to Nashville and Vanderbilt. That's great. I don't think a lot of people are going to go to that game, although it's a great city. Vanderbilt's a very pretty school, but we're excited about going to the Grove. We want to go to Death Valley. We want to go to the Swamp. We want to go to Sanford Stadium and watch us play the Dogs at their place, right between the hedges. Like, so I think from that standpoint, like we're aiming low for this first year, right? But it benefits us because we play so many games at home.
Yeah, I want to quickly touch on OU schedule too, because we'd be remiss if we didn't mention our enemy who is coming along with us. But they start with Temple at home. They've got Houston. Then they've got Tulane, Tennessee. Then so they've got 4 straight home games to start the season. Then they're at Auburn. Then it's the Red River rivalry. They also have a bye week in between. Then they come back home for South Carolina. Then they're at Ole Miss. Then they're back at home for Maine. Then they're at Missouri. Then they're back at home for Bama. And then they end the season at LSU. Wow. So it's a tough schedule compared to what we have. You know, they've got LSU, Bama, Ole Miss, Auburn, Tennessee, Texas. I mean, Missouri. I mean, they could be playing 6 or 7 ranked games this season.
Hey, you got to mention the other team. Who else you got to mention in there?
South Carolina.
The Tulane Green Wave, who have been a really
that's not an easy gimme. That's not easy.
Not at all. It's not. I mean, the main game is the easiest game between the two of our schedules, I would say. Yeah. But I mean, it's nice that they get to start at home, but obviously their season gets that's tough sledding to finish the season with Bama and LSU.
Missouri too. We mentioned them finishing number 9. So they've got
to go to Ole Miss, to go to the Grove. You know, that's a tough one to travel to. I don't envy that.
DJ Dog, you know, he mentioned it earlier in the show, but OU have an entire new O-line next season, which is true. That they've all entered the transfer portal. And when you're heading the SEC, what's the one thing that you want to have a plethora of? Mm-hmm. You have a bunch of interior linemen, D-line, and O-line. And the trenches, man, they're looking a little light right now in Norman. So they might have a tough season next year.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what other like big like, you know, out of conference games are in the SEC outside of that. LSU is USC, which is in Las Vegas. It's pretty exciting. Notre Dame at A&M. And this is all week 1. Clemson versus Georgia in Atlanta, which is exciting. Miami versus Florida is week 1 next year. So that's all week 1. That's all week 1. It's going to be insanity. Tennessee goes to NC State, that's in Charlotte. It's a neutral site game, but that's again like
it's got Wisconsin.
Yeah, NC State's not a gimme game. Bama's got Wisconsin. You're right. And then we pretty much head into SEC play after that. No one else has any games. Saturday, week 4, UCLA at LSU's got both those teams. Wow, they have UCLA as well, which is pretty intense.
Yeah, the one that we didn't even necessarily spend that much time on Oklahoma's schedule. They play Houston too. And that's a Big 12 team now, right? I mean, they were this past year, but Houston could get plucky and scrappy in that game, knowing that they're playing the team that left the Big 12, right? Like we don't have one of those Big 12 teams on our radar for the foreseeable future. But I imagine whenever we do play one of those teams again, you know, they're going to come after us and they're going to come after us hard. So, yeah.
No I do not envy OU. Ole Miss, Bama, that's tough.
We're in the perfect place. I think we could not have gotten more lucky with how it's shaped out for us, with how our season's gone this year, and how it's looking, how we walk into the SEC with a roster that has not been picked apart by transfer portal, with guys that are wanting to come in, with new huge commits that are coming in, being a top 6, potentially top 5 ranked team in recruiting this year. I mean, it's looking really good for the Horns. So we're super excited.
Yeah.
We're here excited to be excited. I'm excited to be excited, and we're here to cover it. We have news that we'll announce, I think,
early next week, probably. Or this
next week. Yeah. We have a really special guest coming next week, and we have some really cool news for next week.
Yeah.
So all very exciting.
And the
stuff.
Quan Cosby will be back joining us on the show, as he typically is. So that'll be great.
Yeah, the GOAT. All right, guys, horns up. Amazing stuff. Maalik, thank you for your time with the Longhorns. We wish you the absolute best, and hopefully we get a ring so you get a ring. Hook 'em, guys. We'll see y'all later.
Peace.